Thank you all for being here today. It's truly an honor to be with you. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you about something that's close to my heart and has been the focus of my efforts for the past 10 years. I'd like for you to indulge me for a moment as I take you through a visualization exercise. Let's start by having everybody get comfortable. Now close your eyes. Breathe normally. And imagine yourself back in your hotel room. Now that you're in your room, go to the bathroom. And I want you to just take a washcloth and put it over the drain in the shower. And I want you to close the drain for the sink and the bathtub. Now I want you to turn on the water in the sink, both hot and cold, to full. I want you to turn on the hot and cold in the bathtub. I want you to turn on the shower. Now I want you to go over to the toilet and take a hand towel and stuff it in the toilet and start flushing the toilet over and over and over and over again. And you begin to see all that water accumulating in your room, in the bathroom. The bathtub is now full and it's starting to overflow. The shower is now overflowing onto the bathroom floor. The sink is now overflowing onto the floor, and the toilet water now completely encompasses the floor in your room. Now go over to the sink and maybe turn the water down a little bit. Go to the bathtub, turn the water down a little bit. Maybe turn the water down a little bit in the shower too. That's the Earth's atmosphere. You can open your eyes now. We've been throwing CO2 into the atmosphere for decades. And just like your bathroom, the atmosphere has become fully saturated, has no ability to handle the excess CO2. The atmosphere for approximately 66 million years had about 270 to 280 parts per million of CO2. In the last 100 years, we've increased the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere to a dangerous point as we approached and then exceeded 350 parts per million, resulting in an average Earth temperature increase of 1 degree. Several decades ago, we were able to scientifically determine that the carrying capacity of the atmosphere was about 350 parts per million, resulting in a negative impact on the planet. I'm sorry to say we're now at 409 parts per million. And we're likely to hit 450 in the next 12 to 17 years. We know that once we hit 450, the scientific evidence tells us it's a tipping point. It's a point of no return. So as you can see, around 1880, the industrial age was really kicking in, resulting in the increase in amount of CO2 emissions. And over the last century, we increased the Earth's atmosphere by 1 degree. In the first 30 years of this century, we'll manage to increase the Earth's atmosphere another 1 degree. And when we hit that 2-degree mark, it's a tipping point. It's a point of no return. All of the climate indicators are on red, and most human beings are just busy going about their lives. Some of us who are awake are turning the water down a little bit in the sink, a little bit in the bathtub, maybe turning the shower down a little bit. Unfortunately, all that does is minimize the amount of CO2 going into the atmosphere. It doesn't do anything to pull the existing amount out of the atmosphere. Unless we pull it out of the atmosphere, it's like leaving the water running in the tub, in the sink, in the toilet, and they're already overflowing. We've got all of this water accumulating on the bathroom floor, and now it's running into the rest of your room. So take your shoes off before you go back into your room. So what can we do about it? What are we going to do about it? There are people experimenting with different kinds of mechanisms to pull the CO2 out of the atmosphere, effectively mining it out of the atmosphere. There's a pilot project going on near San Francisco Airport where a machine is starting to sequester CO2. It may or may not work. It may be able to scale, but in the end, in the intervening period, we don't know that it's actually a solution. So what can we do? The answer is right in front of us. It's trees. Trees are the solution. Trees will actually pull CO2 out of the atmosphere, and it's quite simple. It's a question of how many trees, what kind of trees, where do they need to be planted, and by when. Topsoil actually pulls out more CO2 out of the atmosphere than trees, but in the last 150 years, we've lost half the topsoil on the planet. Since 1977, we lost 40% to 50% of the coral in the oceans due to the amount of CO2 accumulating. And by 2035, we likely will have lost 100% of the coral. So not only are we overfishing the oceans, but we're destroying the coral, which is the nursery for life in the oceans. We're on the verge of having killed off all of the oceans on the planet. Half the CO2 produced on the planet goes into the atmosphere, 25% goes into the oceans, and the remaining 25% gets sequestered on land. We're running out of time. We've got somewhere between 12 and 17 years to prevent us from hitting the 450 parts per million. We need to bring it back down to the 270, 280 parts per million. That's the historic number for the better part of 66 million years. And trees are such an amazing species. They contribute to a significant number of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. They help with hunger, they help with employment, they help with air quality, they help with the oceans, and they don't ask anything of us. They just give us oxygen. If we look at trees and the various models of how trees are being planted around the world, particularly in third world countries, but increasingly in second world countries, NGOs are working primarily with women to plant seeds in their yards, in their gardens, in community spaces to grow trees and get them to seedlings. They get paid to do it. Those trees get transplanted, creating economic opportunities. One of the organizations I've been on the board of and have been affiliated with for about 6 years is based in Belgium, called We Forest. They're working not only at trying to understand the science of reforesting, the impact of tree planting, but also figuring out models for employment. So we get out of this false choice of the economy or the environment, creating employment opportunities. When they plant a forest around the world, they'll set aside about 10 to 15% of the trees to be fruit or nut-bearing trees, so it's a source of food. It's a source of employment. It's a source of education. It's great for the environment. It's great for the economy. So we have, with trees, the opportunity to help with carbon sequestration, help with climate, help with employment, help with a whole host of things that we don't think about, because as human beings, we tend to think of trees as just a resource. Trees are so much more than that. Trees are beings, just like we're beings. And until we can change our relationship with nature and stop seeing ourselves as separate from nature, until we can start seeing trees as beings, just like we look at each other, we're different from all the other plants and animals on this planet. We've got a consciousness. We have the ability to use our prefrontal cortex, the human brain, to make a conscious choice. Are we going to continue to throw more CO2 into the atmosphere and destroy the opportunity for human life on the planet? If the answer is no, then the question becomes how many trees, what kind of trees, and where do we plant them? And it's actually really simple. We need to plant 263 billion trees by 2030. So we've got 11 years. That averages out to each person on the planet planting 36 trees. In Tanzania, for example, it costs about 10 cents to plant a tree, grow it, and get it to survivability at a year. In the US, it's about $1.50. The global average is 50 cents. So we're talking about $18 for every single person on the planet to get these 263 billion trees planted in the next 11 years. Are you ready to get it done? As a father, as somebody who hopefully has another 40 or 50 years of life on this planet, I'm absolutely committed, and I would ask that each of you as human beings, each of you as a leader in your organization, commit to getting this done. It's the only hope for humanity. The planet's been around for billions of years and is going to be here long after we are gone. Can you commit to this from a place of trust and not feel victimized by this information? But really embrace it with enthusiasm, with excitement, with love, with caring, with the commitment to getting it done. Thank you.